Hello, everyone. Thank you once again to give me the opportunity to share some thought with you. Give me 1 second here. Let me start another video as a backup. But again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share some thought with you. This is Mindful Conversation for Critical Time. That's the name of our podcast. And as I always said, I don't take your time for granted, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share some thought with you today. Again, it's always a pleasure, and Mindful Conversation for Critical Time, as I often say, is a production of Ensearch Innovation. And by now you should recall that the position I am taking in terms of what's going on in our world, the events and movements, trends and happening that is taking place in our world, I am calling them noisemakers. And by noisemakers, I mean institutions, groups, individual, organization, and on top of these organizations are all of them, including government organization. I am calling them noisemakers. And so today I want to make a very specific remark. I want to make some specific remarks, I should say, regarding the noisemakers. And we want to call this podcast "Turn Off the Loud Noisemakers from Inside Your Heads." And that's some brief thoughts to lay out the ground from where I'm going to go with that. Look at a little bit historical narratives. Prior to the event of Christianity, there were, of course, the pagan gods. However, for the high-minded individuals, there were also a number of philosophical schools. The four major philosophical schools of the Western and antiquity were the Cynicism, the Stoicism, the Skepticism, and of course the Epicureanism. Despite each of these having their own outlook and approach on life, all four of these schools emphasizes the need for attainment of mental tranquility and mastery, which is for Greek the lack of disturbance or the lack of trouble, making them in that regard in many ways very similar in terms of outlook and life. And so what those philosophers were saying, it is not enough, of course, to simply turn off the noise around us, the external noisemakers, that is. Of course, we can turn off the social media. Yes, we can do that. We can cultivate the quiet countryside, country life, as many of the Stoics did on occasion. We can ignore what is not essential. We can pay no attention to things that make no difference. We can do those things. And if we do all those things, yet the noise is still there. There's still noise in our lives. Why? Because of the noise that are coming from inside of us. We have many, many noise. And that's what I mean, the things that are happening inside of our lives are very, very important as well. So because of the noise that are coming from inside of us, for example, we have the noise of doubt and anxiety, the noise of envy and ambition, the noise of pretensions, the noise of fear, okay? And the noise of fear is one of the loudest noise in our lives. The noise of resentment, the noise of unforgiveness, and the noise of frustration. Those are forces not only on the outside that affecting our lives, but as well on the inside that affecting our lives as well. The noise of frustration. And that ceaseless running monologue that worries about this, resent that, wonders about this, and obsess over that. These are some of the noise that are really, really affect us. One of the emperor of Rome by the name of Marcus Aurelius was really doing lots of meditation as an emperor. And what he was doing, he was practicing the art of mastery over the mind. The art of mastery of how to turn down or to turn off the noise from inside of his head. The ones that made him afraid, the one that caused fear and anxiety, the ones that made him angry, the ones that annoyed him, and as well as the noise that was indulging or indulge his anxiety. You see, just as we need to learn from the actual meditation, the process to which we can pay attention to the thought as a way of discovery that we don't have to identify with the thoughts. We can simply observe them, let them flow by without disturbing the inner tranquility that it's taking place within us. We can hear the stuff without listening to them. And so therefore, we can quiet both the noise outside of us, these noisemakers, and then we can also quiet the noise that is taking place inside of us. It's very important for us to get that balance, because even though we have to definitely pay attention to these noisemakers that are making so much noise outside of us, the external world, we still have to do with the external world. So we don't want to become an isolated individual. And that's why we have to pay attention what type of noisemakers we allow to enter into our lives and ourselves. By the same token, we need the balance to quieting the noise that is taking place within. And so this is why it's very important for us to find that balance of both inner and outer mechanic to deal with both noises dimension. So we can quiet the noise from within. Another story I want to share with you, for example, looking a little bit back on history, leading up to the German bliss, it was said that in London, you could feel the anxiety in the air. Britain's first Lord of the Admiral, Winston Churchill, would have been particularly high-strung. Just imagine that you know that the impending war. So you can imagine the level of anxiety. But yet what we know, for example, there were blackouts, rules, the strict rationing, and the endless cacophony of noise and disturbances as construction crews worked diligently to buttress London against the impending attack. And yet, we read, it was during all this time that Churchill went for work, as one of the author of a book, Eric Larson, write in his thrilling book, The Splendid and the Vile. One day as Churchill was working, as he crossed pathway with a newsboy cheerfully whistling, Churchill said, stop that whistling, says to the young boy, snap at the young boy. The young boy replied, why should I? The boy said, because I don't like it, said Churchill, it is horrible. Well, the boy replied, you can shut your ears, can't you? Churchill was furious, his face flushed red with anger, but he kept walking, and then he kept repeating to himself with a laughter, you can shut your ears, can't you? You can shut your ears, can't you? It is true, we can close our ears from the noisemakers, both inside and outside. As we learned from the emperor, one of the statements that very familiar about this emperor Marcus Aurelius, he said, you don't have to turn this into something. We don't have to turn every thought, every noise into something. And so therefore, we can sharpen our selectivity of our eyes and ears. We can choose to let the whistling newsboy drift right on by. We can do that, as Churchill did. We can choose to act as though I didn't just read that tweet. Whatever tweet someone sent me, I can look at it and just let it go. Those text messages, I can look at them and just let them go. I don't have to act on them. I can do that. You can do that. We can do that. All of the rudeness and the surreal and vile expression all around us, we can ignore them. Not pretend they're not there, but we don't have to give in to them. All the things that offend us, that we offend at, we take offense at, we can turn the ears off and don't let them in. All of the things that frustrate you, all the sound around us that we hate and despise, we can turn them off. All the writers whose opinion make us angry and annoyed because they believe they have the answer to everything, we can turn all of them off and out. We can stay above the noisemakers and the waves of damned they are created and cause. We can not have an opinion. Now that's going to be very hard because in the world we live today, it's very difficult to practice. I don't have an opinion. I don't have to have an opinion on everything. You can not have an opinion. You can. You can shut your ears off. Yes, we can. And when anger began to flush our face like it did to Winston Churchill in the story we share, we can turn it into laughter. I encourage you to try it. It's a life-changing experience. Turn those frustration into laughter. You can do that. Yes, you can. To get to a place of stillness and inner peace, the Stoic knew that controlling the external world, controlling the external noise was not enough. Nor is it enough for you and I. We have to develop an inner calm as well. It is the ability to recognize our own internal destructive thought pattern and the proclivity and the trait of negative emotion, and to learn to quietening them, as well as practicing self-regulation. The path to inner peace is not found through escape to exotic locals and beaches or the elimination of external imposition. It is an inner journey, a journey that you and I must take moment to moment, moment by moment. Yet it is a battle against the voice inside of us and the noise outside of us. We need to pay attention that not only the noise that comes from outside the environment, but also the noise that it comes from the inside as well. And because of that, it is well within our control to pay attention to the inner voices and the loud noises that are taking place inside of us. You see, everyone experiences negative emotion, all of us, me included. But do you feel like in your life you have lost control of your emotion? Do you get blown up at your friends, co-workers, argue with your loved ones, your family, your children, your spouses? Have negative emotions ever had real consequences in your life? Or a negative emotion is having high consequences in your life right this moment because of everything that's going on in the world, everything that's going on around us? Do you have an anger issue? Well, you might say you might not have an anger problem, but that doesn't mean anger is not a problem in your life. It is a problem basically for all of us, for everyone. According to a recent poll, 42% of Americans say that they are angrier now than they were last year, in 2022. Another poll from 2018 found that 22% of Americans reported feeling angry a lot during the day as well. Another 30% increase from the year before that, and a level not reached since 2011. There's almost no one whose anger hasn't cost them something, who doesn't admit it is an obstacle to achieve happiness. No matter what age you are, no matter your age, your profession, man, woman, male, female, anger and negative emotion affect all of us. And an anger problem, it isn't innocuous. It doesn't just result in an embarrassment or sundered relationship. It's very serious. Another study I want to share with you. According to a 2010 study published in the Journal of Medicine and Life, there is a positive correlation between negative emotion and conditions such as atherosclerosis or coronary heart disease. The same study found connection between anger, negative emotion, and disease such as bulimia nervosa, and diabetes. Anger is not just, anger, which is an emotion, but all the other negative emotion. Anger is not just a problem for your work, your job, your spouse, and your relationship. Negative emotion as a whole can be a threat to our health or to your health overall. How much more harmful are the consequences of negative emotion in our lives than the circumstances that arouse them in us? Anger, you see, is one of the primal of human emotion. Both men and women have spent thousands of years grappling with these emotions, its cause and its effect, how it caused problem, and how to mitigate these emotions. We have always known that, but being left uncontrolled, unregulated, those emotions can ruin our lives and our relationship and prevent us from achieving our goal and living optimal life and health. they can also keep us from living the life we want to live and the path we want to lead. Negative emotions, and it's all the emotional problem in our life, is one of the worst things that we find that can hold us back. So these are not things we need to ignore. It just makes sense, you see, to spend time addressing the problem, to seek solution that will allow us to fight back against the control of negative emotions in our lives. It's very important for us to spend time and work these things out. We all have the ability to dedicate ourselves to the path of self-improvement and self-mastery. We all can be inspired to control negative emotion through self-regulation. Because you see, in a world where men and women are often driven by passion over reason, where restraint is a principle nowadays followed by the very few, we do know all generations of human struggle to be better. And this is our time to fight and to take a stand to improve our lives and to be better and within ourselves. Think about what our lives would be like if the negative emotion weren't something that we had to worry about constantly. But also imagine a world where we could control our inner compasses. Imagine if you had a guide, a path, a principle to follow, one that could show us how to keep our internal noise in perspective, one that will taught us how to break out of the uncontrolled and unregulated emotion from spiral out of control constantly in our lives. How would our life be? How our relationship be? It would definitely improve without the menace of negative emotion that's constantly looming in and around us. If that were to happen, what could you spend your time on if you didn't have to worry about to reckon constantly or the consequences of unregulated emotion and negative emotion as well? How much more could you get done in your life? What kind of life would you be living if you didn't have to spend so much energy dealing with unregulated emotions as well as negative emotions, noise from inside, noise that coming from the outside, and noise that are coming from the inside as well? I have a brief proposition. You probably hear those things. I know there are people all around that are trying to give us all kind of solution as to what's going on in our lives and what we need to do. But briefly, I want to share with you, and that is something I've been doing for many, many years, 30 minutes a day of quiet meditation will empower you to take back control over your life, to take back your life. Just 30 minutes a day. Now, I know for some of you, that can be quite a challenge to find 30 minutes a day. That could be a lot, and I understand that. Just think about it. 30 minutes a day that you will delve into quiet meditation and step that will present you with new inner tool to manage the challenges of the day and these critical time. The 30 minutes meditation, as you were to commit yourself to that, will demonstrate immediate coping technique for when you are facing intense emotional and situations. The ability to put negative, uncontrolled emotion and their causes in perspective. 30-minute meditation can help you achieve that. The ability to create a mental habit that will allow you to break free from the spiral of anger, fear, anxiety, and worries. Meditation can help us do that. It had helped me, and I continue to use meditation daily. I do. To find new outlet toward positive emotion. 30 minutes meditation a day can help us achieve that. To discover our creative niche and expand our positivity, and to elevate our focus and clarity while diffuse those emotions that elevated stress. 30 minutes meditation. That's something I'm doing right now. I've been doing it for many years, and I will encourage you to do that. 30 minutes a day. If you are interested in that, you can visit my website, www.focusstillness.com, or you can shoot me an email, infinityknows@gmail.com, or you can actually contact me. Just tell me who's contacted me so I know who I'm speaking to at 717-304-1804. We can take back control of our lives. We can self-regulate. We can deal with negative emotion, but we have to commit to turn off the loud noise, not only from the outside, but also those noisemakers we just talked about. The noise of doubt, the noise of fear, the noise of anxiety, the noise of worriness, the noise of resentment, noise of pretentious. We don't want, and we shouldn't have to be subject to a constant inner struggle. And so we can turn off those loud noise makers, not only from without, but also from within. And as I just shared with you, 30 minutes of meditation a day will help us achieve that. And let me quickly reiterate, it is not enough. It is not sufficient, and I know you know that, to simply shut off the noise from outside, whereas there's as much as loud noise that is taking place from within. And as you know, as well as I do, these voices, these noises have many interconnectedness. In other words, there are lots of things that connect these noises in our lives. Challenges, hurts, wounds, things that happen to us, disappointment, decision we made that didn't turn out the way we hoped they would, choices that we made that we were disappointed. And there's one, and I know many of us and many of you can relate to that. People that come in our lives. There are two types of people that will come in our lives. People that will enrich our lives, expand it, help us grow, encourage us to pursue our dreams, okay? Inspire us and motivate us to be true to ourselves, encourage us to take a stand for what is right. That's one type or kind of people that will come in our lives. And I'm sure you have some of those people that come into your lives. By the same token, there's a different kind of people that will come into our lives that will leave us with wounds, wounds that time will not heal. And what we don't want to do is to become resentful, because it's very easy to do so. What we don't want to do is to become unforgiving, because that's self-sabotaging. What we don't want to do is become isolated, and withdraw. We don't want to do that. Another things we don't want to do is self-judging. Why this thing happens to me? And because I'm not good enough. No. Yes, we can say there will be people that come in our lives and they will do more harm mentally, emotionally, psychologically, I'm speaking, than good. Those people are all around us. Nevertheless, while those will happen, and I'm sure it does happen to you or to many of us, we can rise above those experiences and do not become isolated, do not become revengeful, do not become resentful, and definitely do not become unforgiving, because those are self-sabotaging, unforgiving, resentful, even pretentious, do more harm to you than it does to the person to which we're expressing those negative emotions. And that's one of the reasons why we need to look within ourselves and see the type of noises that we are experiencing from within, where they're coming from, and what is it they interconnected with, so we can properly deal with them and set ourselves free from these negative emotions so we can live a life. There'll always be challenges, but we can live our lives free from this negative emotion. And so what we will see, there will be a constant growth in our lives. There always would be challenges in our life. Please don't get me wrong. There will always be challenges in our lives. And that's precisely the point, because as we learn how to deal with those challenges, we grow in our understanding, not only of the world in which we're living, but also the world in which is within us. And so I encourage you once again to contemplate of begin to practice 30 minutes of meditation a day, 30 minutes a day. And as I say, I really know that can be very hard to find 30 minutes. I teach yoga and I practice yoga. I can tell you time and times again in my yoga class, when we go into the Shavana, people just roll the mat. They have to go. And they have legitimate reason why they have to leave. Probably have to pick up the children from babysitter. They only have limited time. They probably have to go back to work. They probably have other appointments to go. So it can be very difficult to find 30 minutes to meditate. But what I want to tell you, you can do it if you sit down and look at what are the things in your life that are taking time where you can deduct time from and create that 30 minutes. And you will commit yourself to not only just 30 minutes of meditation, but a life-changing experience that will bring richness, vitality, as well as focus and clarity in your life for a very long time. And again, this is conversation, mindful conversation, as we call it, for critical time. I know, and I will keep saying that, we are living in very, very critical time. Next podcast, I will put a challenge to you. It is something I am contemplating myself, how I'm going to include that in my life to protect myself from all the hooray that is happening in the world. But as I just shared with you, learn how to turn things off. Pay attention to the noisemakers, not only the outside noisemakers, but also these internal noisemakers that are taking place within, and those negative emotions, to learn how to self-regulate as well as self-observe and pay attention to the inner world. Until the next time, listen. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope to hear from you very soon. Until next time, thank you for your time. I want to thank everyone for listening. And if you haven't subscribed, do so to stay tuned with our future conversation. Again, this podcast is a production of Such Innovation. Once again, thank you for listening.